we're live.
The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you dedicated enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes?
Greetings, everybody. It is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate negative 268742.1. I'm Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer of the USS Dauntless. I am the Admiral in question. And today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Typically, these webinars are about initiatives or activities or protocols or practices or policies of the USS Dauntless. Today's webinar touches on a topic which is tangentially related to Dauntless activity, but it's not directly an initiative that we operate. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here, in addition to the actual content of the video that we'll be getting into momentarily, is that the Dauntless crew represents a significant library of information. Between all of our brains, we have so much information and advice and experience that we can provide to each other on a variety of topics, many of which relate to life aboard the Dauntless, but also relate to life outside the Dauntless and might have benefits that have far-reaching consequences. So I'm going to demonstrate that today, but I'm going to be talking about energy tracking. So what do I mean by energy tracking? So if you go back and watch one of our earliest briefing videos talking about mission readiness, let me pull that up here. So mission readiness relates to our standing order number 2, which is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. And one of the clarifying points under standing order number 2 is to work to better ourselves mentally and physically. I did an entire video on this concept called mission readiness, in which we spoke mostly about the ways that we promote becoming physically more, improving yourself physically through a variety of means. The Dauntless has a number of initiatives that are built to assist and support our crew in becoming physically fitter and progressing along their health journey in that way. One aspect that I mentioned in that video is talking about managing your eating and how the Dauntless doesn't have any kind of initiative to support people in eating in a healthy way. And that's not strictly true. Although we have no formalized structure around that, we do have some resources available. So just to remind you what I mean by that. So I was talking in that video about the 5 levers of health. So you have 5 levers of your body that you can operate yourself. These are 5 different aspects of your life that are within your control, that by operating those levers appropriately, you can improve your mission readiness, which has knock-on effects in terms of your own quality of life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever way you can imagine. These levers, if you operate them correctly, can assist you in improving those things. And those levers are, as I define them, exercise, diet, medical management, sunshine and fresh air, and personal relationships. Now, exercise, medical management, sunshine and fresh air, and personal relationships we covered extensively back in that original mission readiness video. But diet I only touched on briefly and then skirted right past it. But given that in the previous in the previous briefing video we did last week, we spoke about how, not last week, 2 weeks ago, we spoke about how it's beneficial for members of our crew to be as good looking as possible, to be pretty faces, as Colonel Hubert put it. We want to be able to enhance our visual appearance, but also be able to enhance our health. And all of those things link back to diet. Diet is the one lever of your life that you can operate that can directly impact both of those things, or at least one of the levers that you can do that with. So I wanted to talk today about managing your diet in a way that can be under control. So how do you get control of your eating? It might seem that because you're the person who's physically putting the food into your mouth, that you are already in control of your diet. Unfortunately, psychologically speaking, that's simply not true. There are a number of studies available where you can look up how poorly we do as humans, as human animals, to estimate the amount of energy that is contained in the food that we consume. We are terrible at guessing how much energy it contains, and also we are terrible at keeping track mentally of how much food we actually consume. If you were to guess without keeping any kind of a record how many calories or kilojoules you've consumed in a day, you could come up with a number and it would be wrong. 100% of the time it would be wrong, probably by quite a lot. And this is one of the major contributing factors to people not managing their diet correctly. There's something of an epidemic in the West around obesity, where people are habitually consuming too much food, but there are also people who don't consume enough food, and there are even a category of lucky people in the middle who just are concerned about making sure that they're eating the right amount of food. Now, what qualifies me to talk about this kind of thing? I am not a medical professional. I'm not a dietitian. I'm simply somebody who has some experience in this area. Let me show you what I mean. This is what I looked like 15 years ago, and this is what I look like today. And the way that I obtained these results is largely through managing my diet, my calorie consumption. Um, So what do I mean by calorie consumption? So let's define some terms. So energy is mass equals mc squared. Einstein established that a long time ago. But what does that mean in terms of food, and what are kilojoules and calories? So kilojoules and calories are two different ways of measuring the amount of energy that you can extract from the food that you eat. Energy is used when we're talking about food, we're talking about chemical energy that can be turned into heat and various other biochemical processes in the body in order to run your systems, in order to operate your muscles, in order to think your thoughts. All of those things cost energy, and that energy is brought into the body through consumption, through food. And calories and kilojoules are two different ways of measuring the amount of energy that your food contains. You can do a mathematical conversion between the two, but essentially, calories are the imperial unit that measures the amount of energy that food contains, and kilojoules is the standard international unit that everybody else uses. So calories are what they use in America, kilojoules are what they use everywhere else in the world. But a lot of the literature that you'll find talking about this topic is published in the United States. So most of those resources you'll find will use the term calories. But kilojoules are what we use here in South Africa when we're talking about actually practicing the things that I'm going to be talking about today. So in terms of general use of the language, you can substitute kilojoules for calories. You can use those words pretty much interchangeably, except when we're talking about the numbers. That's when you want to make sure you're talking about the correct unit, kilojoules versus calories. And what those two words are describing is energy. That's the amount of energy that you are able to extract from the food that you eat. Don't worry, Colonel Hubert, we're not talking about maths, at least not very much. It's just simple arithmetic. So we're not going to be worrying about converting from kilojoules to calories. That shouldn't be necessary. Having been doing this for 15 years, well, not 15 years, but a long time. You don't actually have to do any of that conversion yourself. It all kind of gets done for you. So when we're talking about, yeah, don't worry about the math. So when we're talking about the energy that you consume, how does that system work? So when you consume food, you burn that food, chemically speaking, in your digestive tract and extract chemical energy from that, which is then used up by your body's systems. Ideally, you want to be in a situation where the amount of energy that you're consuming in the form of either calories or kilojoules, you're eating that energy, you want to be burning roughly the same amount of energy. That will keep your body nice and stable. If you are eating excess energy, if you're consuming excess energy, more energy than you are burning, then you will gain weight because that energy gets stored in your body, typically in the form of fat. Fat is a very good system that our body uses, very efficient way of storing energy reserves so that when we need it, we can access it. We have evolved in a way that we are adapted for scarcity so that our body stores reserves of energy for later when we might need it. And we haven't really adapted physically to a world in which we actually live, which is one where we can pretty much eat whatever we want whenever we want it. There in the lives of most Western people, there simply isn't a period of scarcity that we need to be prepared for. So if we're not careful, we will just carry on storing up those extra kilojoules more and more and more, and just never burn them off. If you want to lose weight, then you are consuming fewer calories or less energy than you are burning. So this is the balancing act when it comes to calories in versus calories out, which is the slogan that people will use online. Now, you might hear from people online talking about calories in, calories out being a myth or a lie, or that it's not accurate. Um, they're they're wrong. They're a little bit right, but they're mostly wrong. So what they mean is that there are mitigating factors that can influence how efficiently your body burns calories that you consume, right? So, for example, exercise. If you are increasing the amount of energy that you're consuming, so that you're burning, then you are uh, affecting this balance. In theory, you're increasing your calories burned so that your calories eaten is smaller in relation to it. The problem there is that trying to influence your weight through exercising is trying to wag the dog by the tail. Unless you're training at the level of an Olympic athlete, the amount of extra calories you're going to be burning through exercise is going to be, well, not insignificant, but relatively small compared to your daily expenditure of energy. So you're burning more energy when you're at rest than when you're exercising. Even if you're exercising a couple of hours a day, you're still burning more energy when you're at rest. That difference is just too small to make a significant difference. Exercise is important, don't get me wrong. Exercise and dietary management are two very closely related practices, and ne'er the twain shall meet. They have strong influences on each other. But you can't exercise your way to a six pack, just like you can't eat your way to big muscles. Lieutenant Kimberly, no, exercise is not bad for you. It's just not as significant a factor in this equation as you might imagine. Another factor that people might mention is things like metabolic disorders. That is absolutely true. So some people have problems with their ability to metabolize energy. It means that they are not able to extract energy from certain foods as efficiently as most people are, or perhaps they have some kind of an adverse reaction to certain types of chemicals in foods. That means that they are not going to be able to process food as efficiently, or perhaps they process food too efficiently, which will be a mitigating factor to this calories in versus calories out equation. But again, that effect is going to be relatively small. And if you are one of the people who has a condition like that, you will be, upon diagnosis, you'll be referred to a dietitian who will help you to learn how to manage those restrictions that come with that condition, so that you can eat around those limitations. And then in the end, the results will be relatively trivial. And then, of course, there's the factor of individual variation. Even outside of those kinds of disorders, everybody has a slightly different chemical composition. We all have a slightly different metabolism. We're all built slightly differently. So there will be variations in just how efficiently we're able to burn energy from certain food sources over others. That's just part of the nature of human existence, that there is going to be subtle variation. But on average, again, that variation is going to be relatively small, probably not worth even considering. Before I continue, I want to address some of the comments. Let's see, we've got Lieutenant Fave says, I think this topic is one of my biggest failing points. It is for me too. As the before photo showed you, this is something that I've battled with my whole life, and it really takes a lot of dedication over time to develop the habits around controlling your food. I'm not perfect at it. I still have room for improvement, and I have to make choices about what my priorities are in every single day. But with the tools that I'm going to present to you today, hopefully we can make that a little bit easier on each of us. Chief Quatsa says, 15 years ago, there's a lot of blood to donate. Yes, back in those days, yes, I had quite a lot of blood. In fact, I lost in that period, in the intervening period, I lost something like 30 kilos. I've made some of that weight back just because haven't been as disciplined as I usually am with my my eating practices, but keeping on it every day, I've been able to keep it more or less under control. Chief Costa says to burn more calories is to wear less clothes, so you're colder, but you burn more energy and faster to keep your vitals working. Follow me for more thoughts. You're not wrong. So if you're cold, then you want to be more active to keep yourself warm, so you will burn more calories on average. But again, you're wagging the dog by the tail. So you're going to be you'll be making an impact, but it's relatively small, unless you're literally on your feet 18, 20 hours a day. Captain Franklin says exercise is the top part of the healthy pyramid. Everything else has more relevance in management, i.e., food. Quite right. Exercise is essential. It can't be dispensed with, and it will impact your ability to manage the caloric throughput of your food. In one way it'll do that, for example, is that if you gain muscle mass, muscle is better at burning energy than non-muscle. So the more muscle mass you have, the more efficiently you will consume and burn the energy that you're eating. Again, the effect is small, but if you're stacking lots of small effects on top of each other, then that turns into a large effect. So if you are able to bulk up, you put on some more muscle mass, and then you exercise for a couple of hours a day, then that impact that you're having on your overall calorie equation is going to be slightly better, and it's going to make it that much easier for you to keep your weight under management. Chief Costa says the brain uses about 20% of your energy. Maybe we should think harder and more. Yes, that's also true. The brain is a very energy intensive organ. So thinking more will burn more calories. But again, the effect that that's going to have is relatively minor. But if you're breaking a mental sweat every day by reading your pages and doing your Duolingo and doing your Treckle puzzles, then that will probably help. Colonel Uber says that's exactly what the reading challenge is for. 100%. That is accurate. All right. So I hinted at this earlier, but essentially what the biggest obstacle towards managing your size, your caloric balance is inattentional eating. By not paying attention to what you're eating, you are losing track of the calories in or side of the equation. The calories outside of the equation is easy to track because humans are mammals. Mammals are lazy. We are acutely aware of every calorie we burn, but calories we consume is quite difficult. If you look at a bowl of food on a table, you might try and estimate what the caloric value is in there, and you will be wrong all of the time, unless you've spent some time figuring out how to calibrate your sense of what the caloric content of food is. And that's what I'm going to be going through next is how do we, Chief Costa says, how do we increase our metabolism? You can't really increase your metabolism to a significant degree. The fitter you are, the higher your metabolic rate. But again, that effect is small. Cardiovascular fitness is important. In other words, exercise is the way to do that. So the more exercise you get, the more efficient your metabolism will be, but that's not going to be a significant effect on the overall equation. It's going to slightly weigh the calories burned side of the balance. So I'm going to show you some tools that I've used to help me with this inattentional eating. Effectively, what I've learned is that using a tool to track every single piece of food that you eat is the easiest way to not lose track in your mind of what you've eaten, because if you're not using your mind to track it, then you don't have to rely on your memory to do it. And there are a number of tools that are available to do this exact thing. So here's an article I found, the 8 best calorie counter apps. Again, calorie, kilojoule, energy, those words are interchangeable. I've tried a few of these. I've tried MyFitnessPal, I've tried Noom, and I've tried LifeSum. Their LifeSum and MyFitnessPal are very similar. Noom is a little bit different, but it also has calorie tracking capabilities. I recommend all three of them. I recommend that you try them and see which one works best for you. The one that I use at the moment is MyFitnessPal. Captain Franklin says he's tried MyFitnessPal and it's nice. Yes, it is nice. It's very convenient, very easy to use. LifeSum and MyFitnessPal are virtually identical. The only reason I chose MFP over LifeSum is that they both have a premium subscription option. LifeSum's premium subscription is slightly more expensive, and the free version, so if you're not paying for the premium subscription, the free version of MyFitnessPal offers you several more features that are relevant to the way that I use the app. So if I choose to not use the premium version, MyFitnessPal lets me do more stuff than the LifeSum app does. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. They work pretty much the same. So I'm going to pull this up on my phone. Let's see, I need to unlock my phone and I need to share it with you. There we go. All right, there's my phone. All right, so this is my MyFitnessPal app. Currently basis calorie counting can be a slippery slope into eating disorders, so make sure you work on your mental health as well and find workarounds if you know you're likely to relapse. 100%. If you have any kind of pre-existing mental condition or any kind of condition, you should definitely consult with your physician or your psychiatrist before you begin on a program like this. There are always considerations that need to be taken into account, and you might need to make adjustments to the plan based on your specific circumstances. Best I can do as an untrained professional, as an untrained layperson, not a trained professional, is I can offer my advice and what has worked for me, as well as point you in the direction of some tools that I found useful. But your results will vary. So this is the tool that I use, MyFitnessPal. I have not logged any of my food today so that I can show you what this looks like. So here on the dashboard, we've got various things. I've got my weight track down there. I can connect it to my PerScan. The PerScan connection doesn't work very well. I have actually connected it to my PerScan many times, but it keeps forgetting the PerScan connection. You can see it automatically syncs up with my Google Fit, so it pulls through the exercise that I've done for the day, so that it can try to calculate the outside of the caloric equation. It'll pull through my steps a little bit later as well, and that happens automatically in the background, and I don't have to pay any attention to that. When I want to log my food, I go here to the diary tab, and here you can see are my different meals for the day: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and there's the exercise that it's pulled through. You can see I've only done 1141 steps today because the weather was such that I haven't been able to go to the gym today. Otherwise, normally that number would be significantly higher. And because it wasn't a gym day, I haven't gone for my full protein meal, which I would typically have on a day like today. I've just gone for regular food, which hopefully will make it a little bit easier to show you. In fact, I'm going to start with lunch because lunch is a little bit simpler. So for lunch, I had a tuna pasta salad, which I made myself. So I'm going to search tuna pasta. It would help if I could spell correctly. There we go. Tuna pasta, it's pulled it up. So that is roughly the right amount. So I'm just going to add that to my diary, and then we can go into that thing and see what it looks like. So here it's been added to my diary. If I click through on that, you can see the breakdown of what it is. So I've added it to lunch as the meal. Number of servings is 3. That's because the standard recommended serving size in the app is 95 grams, and I had roughly 300 grams worth of food. Now, when it comes to calorie counting, you want to be as accurate as you need to be. You don't necessarily need to be precise to the gram all the time. Sometimes that's going to matter, but how important that is going to vary from time to time. And the way you can be relatively sure about that kind of thing is you can get yourself a little kitchen scale like this. It's relatively inexpensive. You can pick it up from Clicks or Checkers or wherever for less than $200, and you can weigh your food out if you want to. If you're eating prepackaged food, then it's that much easier because the weight is usually printed on the side, and there's an even easier way to manage that, which I can show you shortly. But if you are making food at home, then you can weigh that out in that way. You can either specify the recommended serving size, or you can choose just a single gram and type in manually how many grams it was. In my case, it was roughly 300 grams. Tuna salad doesn't have a particularly high caloric density, which means that per gram, it doesn't have that many kilojoules per gram. So it's fine to be a little bit imprecise when it comes to this kind of thing. It's kind of close enough. I always use the same size bowl when I'm serving myself tuna salad, and I always dish myself up roughly the same amount. So I know roughly that was about 300 grams worth of tuna salad. So 3 times 95 grams is close enough. And then I will add that. I also had a cup of coffee. In fact, I'm still busy drinking it. Here it is. And I've pre-programmed into MyFitnessPal how I like my coffee. So if I go to the My Meals tab, here it is, Coffee Dauntless Standard. That's how I take my coffee. I add it to the thing, and there it is. So now we've got my tuna pasta, we've got some sugar, some Nescafe Classic, and some full cream milk, always done. Colonel Hubert asks, Dauntless Standard? Yes, it is Dauntless Standard coffee. Dauntless Standard coffee is 1 spoon of instant coffee, roughly about 50 milliliters of milk and 3 teaspoons of sugar. That is how everybody is mandated to take their coffee upon the Dauntless. Captain Franklin says coffee is a nice passive metabolic fat burner. Kind of. I wouldn't say passive exactly. What it does do is it slightly improves your muscular endurance. So when you're exercising, it allows you to exercise just a little bit longer, just a little bit harder than you would otherwise be able to do so. It also is a vasodilator, so it makes your heart work a little bit harder than normal. But again, it's a very subtle effect. Too much sugar, we're all judging you. Yes, so that is part of the question when you're dealing with this kind of practice is you need to be making trade-offs on where do you want to be spending your kilojoule budget. So you'll notice here that I have an 8,000 kilojoule goal for the day. I've already eaten 3,000 kilojoules of it. It's deducted from my from the amount that I've eaten, the 360 kilojoules worth of food. It's the exercise that I've done today, which means that I've got 5,346 kilojoules left for the day. Lieutenant Kimberly says, if I want a milkshake, I have a milkshake. Judging intensifies. 100%. If you want to have a milkshake, you absolutely should have a milkshake, because eating doesn't only provide food, it also provides mental stimulation, emotional comfort, things like that. And knowing which foods provide the desired result is part of the process. But if you want to have a milkshake, then you can try and find a way to slot it into your daily budget. So let me put my breakfast in, because that is again one of my standard meals. I typically have a number of set meals that I eat on the regular. Today I had my PB&J breakfast, which is an open peanut butter and jam, apricot jam sandwich with, again, a cup of coffee. So all of those items have been added there, and here it's updated my total. So now I've got just under 3,000 kilojoules left for the day, and that's what I'm going to have to squeeze into my dinner. I'm going to play in a pub quiz tonight, so I'm going to have a relatively small sandwich so that I don't overeat my calorie budget for the day. If I click through here, we can see a more detailed breakdown of my food consumption for the day, broken down into macro and micronutrients. So macronutrients are things like protein, carbohydrates, fat, fiber, sugar. And then your micronutrients are things like your vitamins, your minerals, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you've got enough of the things that you need and not too much of the things you don't need. There's nothing wrong with carbohydrates or fat. Those things are not poison, despite what some people on the internet might tell you. But the downside of carbs and fat is that they both have relatively high caloric density, which means that per gram they have more kilojoules of energy contained in them than something like a protein source would have. So 100 grams of steak has less kilojoules in it than 100 grams of chocolate by quite a lot, quite a significant margin. So if you want to make sure that you're meeting your caloric budget without overspending, without overeating your budget, you want to try and minimize your high caloric density foods. So that's things like fat and carbohydrates, and make space for the other things that you need. If you have other goals that you are eating to support, so in my case, I'm working on recomposition at the moment. I'm trying to maintain my weight more or less steady while converting my body composition from fat to muscle. That means I need to be maximizing my protein intake. So if I'm spending my caloric budget on things like carbs and fat, that means that I don't have enough kilojoules left to hit my protein target of 150 grams per day. So that is the consideration that we need to be making when we're keeping track of our kilojoules in this way. So it doesn't mean that anything is wrong, anything is bad. You can still eat whatever you want. It's just about making sure that you're keeping track of what you're eating. But I want to make it clear that the most important thing about learning to track your calories or track your kilojoules like this is that you need to develop the habit before you do anything else. So this app has allowed me to set my goals. So if we look through at my budget here, this is broken down into total consumed as well as goals. You can configure your goals however you like. You can set your total calorie goal for the day. You can set your micronutrient goals if you've gone the premium version, that kind of thing. And this can help you track your progress towards those goals. But my recommendation for you, if you haven't already started doing this kind of thing, is that your goal should simply be to use it, to use the app. You can set up notifications in the app. Let's see. It's probably down here under settings. Oh, reminders, it was there. So you can set up reminders in the app so that every day at a given time, so breakfast is at 10 a.m., or lunch at 2 p.m., or dinner at 8 p.m., it can pop up a notification on your device to remind you to log your meal. Then you open up the device, you do your best to try and remember what it was that you ate for that meal, and then that's it. And I recommend that you do that for a good month or two until you're well and truly in the habit of logging every single thing that you eat before you even think about setting goals for yourself. That is how you gain control over what you're eating, by first watching and being aware of what you're eating. You'll notice pretty soon just how many kilojoules you're consuming if you are being diligent about keeping track of what you're eating. And then once you've got a sense of what your current consumption is and what you want to be doing, perhaps you want to be losing weight, perhaps you want to be increasing weight, perhaps you want to keep your weight more or less the same, you can go into your goal section here and you can configure this however you need to. And you can tweak it from there. So what you might notice is, and this is something that I've noticed, is I've set a goal for slight weight loss, but mostly for recomposition. I've noticed that this calorie calculator isn't quite right. It overestimates the amount of calories that I'm burning on exercise and underestimates the amount that I'm getting from food. So I've had to adjust my goals accordingly in order to compensate for that slight variance. So that variance would come in from those mitigating factors I mentioned earlier. There's personal variance, which will make an impact. There's the amount of exercise that I'm doing. So although it's pulling through exercise from Google Fit, it's going to be an estimated number of kilojoules burned. It's not going to be an actual number. And even the kilojoules that are included in the food that I'm eating is also an average estimate. Each mouthful of tuna pasta salad is not necessarily going to contain the exact amount of kilojoules that is specified on the app. It's an estimate based on various processes that the manufacturers are going to come up with. I did say that if you're eating primarily prepackaged food, it's that much easier to add food because it has a barcode scanner. There's a meal scanning option. I think that's available only in premium. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not very good. The barcode scanner is much more effective. My device is pointing at the table right now. But if I had a barcode for a cold drink or a chocolate or something like that, I could just flash that barcode in front of that reticle right there. It would pick up the item on the database and then it would add it to the list accordingly. If I only ate half of it, then I could specify that I ate 0.5 of that or that kind of thing. Especially when it comes to things that have very high caloric density, something like chocolate, you want to be very precise about the weight that you've consumed. Frank Curtis says that's one of the best features of MFP. I agree. Lifesum also has a barcode scanner, but again, some of the features are hidden behind the paywall. So this is the crux, the tool that keeping track of your food and getting control of your diet involves, at least in my experience, is knowing how much you're consuming and how much you're burning and adjusting your expectations and your goals accordingly. And this is something that's going to happen a lot. It's a lot more intensive right at the beginning because, again, you have to spend weeks. It took me a good month and a half to really get into the habit of doing this at every meal. I've now been doing it solidly for years and years. And I almost never forget. And there are days when I know I'm going to be over consuming. If it's Christmas Day or it's my birthday or something like that, I know I'm going to be having 3 slices of cheesecake that day. I'm not going to bother logging it because I know I'm going to be blowing way over my goal. But as long as I'm logging almost every single day, then that's close enough. It's the average that counts, not the spikes, not the dips. And that's the kind of thing that you need to be reasonable with yourself about. So setting a goal is good, and trying your best to maintain that goal is also good, but you need to allow yourself to live your life. If there's a chocolate there and you really want that chocolate because you know it's going to make you feel good and you kind of need to feel good today, then eat the chocolate. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. As long as you're not eating all of the chocolates every day, it's fine. You want to try and hit your target on average every day if you possibly can, but allow yourself to live your life. Eating for mental health is not out of the question. Just be moderate about it. Captain Fulkerson says balance is key and having self-control, the latter being the most difficult. I agree. Self-control is difficult, and studies have shown this as well, that we have a finite amount of what we would call willpower. We can only spend so much willpower on things on any given day. So if you're spending your willpower on trying to resist eating that chocolate or trying to resist going to KFC and ordering the bucket of chicken, then you're not going to be able to expend that willpower later in the day when there's a cookie right in front of you and you want to eat that cookie. So what I've found for all of this kind of thing, whether it's managing your diet or keeping to an exercise regimen or anything like that, I want to try and outsource that willpower as much as possible. So if I can develop a habit so that I don't have to think about it, then I don't have to rely on willpower to make myself do it. If I'm clicking through on the reminder that MyFitnessPal is popping up on my phone every day, I don't have to remember to do it. But you know what? I've had those reminders turned off for years now. I don't even need the reminders anymore. I'm so used to doing it. It just kind of happens. It feels weird if I don't. Logging my meal is just part of me eating my meal every time I eat a meal. Um, so habits allow you to offload that willpower. The more entrenched a habit is, the easier it is for you to keep it up because you don't have to think about it all the time, and then it becomes you have that much more willpower to spend on resisting that bucket of chicken or that cookie or whatever it is. And it's easy enough to just log into your MyFitnessPal every day to see how many calories you've got left, so you can see whether you should be ordering the large fries or the medium fries or the double thick milkshake or perhaps the Coke Zero. All right, so that's all there is about that. I don't see any more questions. I think I've addressed everybody in there. All right, fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I think I greeted everybody, but just in case, I see you there, Chief Newton, Lieutenant Vervey, Colonel Joubert, Captain Van Groenen, Chief Kotze, and Lieutenant Kimberly. Thank you for joining us today. If anybody has any questions after the fact, then you're welcome to pop those in the YouTube comments section, in the Facebook comments section. You're welcome to hunt me down on Discord or Messenger or Telegram or wherever you can find me, and we can have a chat about this or anything else you might be interested in discussing. If you have more comments or suggestions for future videos, then please let me know those as well. But I think that's going to